Now, one of the main reasons I'm doing these first impressions is because more than likely it'll be a while before I actually get a full review, but it is one of the most anticipated games I have for 2023 thus far, and I wanted to give you some of my initial thoughts on playing the game thus far. Like a Dragon Ishin is a remake of the 2014 release spin-off of the Yakuza games that never got a Western release. It is set instead of in the grimy, dirty, rainy streets of Kamurocho in modern-day Japan, in Bakumatsu during the late Edo period, which is around the middle of the 19th century, and you take control of Sakamoto Ryoma, who is put in the middle of a gigantic coup that is meant to tear apart a samurai village. And unfortunately, very similar to the other Yakuza games, a murder of a very important figure is pinned on him. So it is up to him to not only clear his name, but also try to stay low before he gets arrested. And this is where you get the samurai spin-off portion of the Yakuza games that we've grown to know and love. And instead of using the RPG system that we saw in Like a Dragon, which is Yakuza 7, this is more in line with the time that it was not only originally released, but also the follow-up Yakuza games. This game is not an RPG, but a 3D beat-em-up brawler very similar to the other Yakuza games that came before it. But instead of just focusing on using the fist of Ryoma, you actually have several fighting styles that are rooted in that period. You do have the brawler style, which is very reminiscent to the dragon style. In addition to that, you have the gunman style, where you are able to shoot a pistol. In the case of the PlayStation games, hitting the triangle button, you can shoot specialized ammo like flame ammo that sets enemies on fire if it hits them. But the flame ammo and special ammo in general are limited instead of the regular attack ammo that you use with the square button in the case of the PlayStation games, where that is totally unlimited as long as you're in that style. There's of course the swordsman style, which utilizes a katana as the primary weapon, and then the mix between the gunman and the swordsman style is the wild dancer, where it's very similar to the breaker style from Yakuza 0, where you're able to float around, bounce around, even cancel out mid-combos to start another combo on an enemy that may be trying to attack you as you evade during the mid-combo. It's easily the most fluid and, to me, fun fighting style of the four, whereas Brawler feels, of course, very familiar. Swordsman takes a little getting used to, as well as Gunman. But all four styles can be changed at the touch of the D-pad. Now, I will say, unlike, say, Ghost of Tsushima, switching between styles does have a delayed reaction. I noticed that there were times where I was hitting the D-pad and it didn't necessarily go to that style immediately. It wasn't as fluid as I would have hoped when it comes to switching styles, especially in the middle of a fight. Some of the issues that do come up from the gameplay itself, especially during a battle, is rooted in the old Yakuza engine that we saw in Yakuza 1 to Yakuza 5, where there will be some input delay, there will be some reaction times that feel a little more in favor of the enemy, especially when you try to block, because blocking and parrying are actually very effective in this game. When you parry by hitting the block right before the enemy hits you, as a brawler, you're able to sidestep and throw that enemy to the side and start up a combo on them if you can. Swordsman actually knocks an enemy back if you parry at the right time. So there are these advantages of trying to learn the timing, but if you notice, especially when you're in the middle of a combo and right as you're ending a combo, you try to hit the block button to stop an attack that's incoming, the game won't necessarily register it in time and you will be hit. It's something that you have to get used to, and it's not as crisp and as tight and as rewarding as some of the games that will come years after it, even though this is a remake. As per the norm with these Yakuza games, these Like a Dragon games as they are known as now, there are plenty of things to do even at the very beginning. One of the things that is rooted, of course, in the gameplay is the skill tree. Thankfully, the game provides you all four fighting styles pretty much immediately in the first chapter. They give you a quick tutorial, and then it goes into the skill tree. And each fighting style has its own skill tree, where you're able to utilize orbs that you pick up either by beating enemies or leveling up. Now, there are two types of orbs. The training orbs that fill up the slots temporarily if you want to, because they're rewarded to the player a lot faster than the actual skill or style orbs. Now, the skill or style orbs are rewarded as you level up each style. So when you utilize a training orb, that actually gives you the ability to utilize whatever skill that orb occupies on the skill tree. But if you wanted to make it permanent, then you have to utilize a skill orb. It sounds like it's a little complicated, but it's really not. It's very simple, and it actually gives the player a lot of options very early on, especially if you're going around and just fighting random enemies and picking up training orbs, because that will give you a better chance of actually trying out different skills and figuring out what you want to keep and what you want to get rid of. Moving around each area, there are people that you can help. There are also sub-stories or side quests, of course, that are rooted in this series, some long, some short. But one of the big things that they've added to the game is the virtue system. The virtue system allows for the player to grow their reputation in a positive manner by doing things like completing sub-stories or just simply saving a person who is in the middle of being robbed by a bunch of thieves and bandits. Now, with these virtue points, you're able to buy passive skills and even active skills like being able to run a lot longer before your stamina runs out. This is very similar to, once again, something that was seen in Yakuza 0 and even subsequent Yakuza Kiwami games. From what I've seen thus far, a majority of the things that were extracurriculars that were in the previous games are here in this version, including karaoke and various other mini games. There's also the high level of completion that is needed if you want to get 100%, and new additions like the battle arena that I've yet to get to that is rooted in a card system and a dungeon crawler as well. I haven't had any real technical issues other than what I've noted when it comes to the gameplay in general. The only real technical issue I've had thus far that's been annoying is the fact that the auto transition for dialogue when it comes to text never stays automatically on even when you click it on. Like, you'll have to constantly turn it back on every time a conversation finishes and a new conversation starts. Overall, if you're a fan of the Yakuza games, if you're a fan of the non-RPG heavy, like a Dragon type of Yakuza games, this is perfect for you, even though it's a completely different setting. Even though we have character skins on different names, it still feels like an old school Yakuza game in the best way possible. I wholeheartedly suggest that if you're a fan of these games, pick it up as soon as possible. It's also a good starting point for those who don't necessarily know what to do when it comes to the overall branching narratives and gigantic franchise that is the Yakuza series, the Like a Dragon series. Mostly because it has nothing to do with the previous games while still having a lot of the gameplay roots of those previous games that I've grown to love so much.